the Premier League. And
Don't you dare, ref. That's he got the ball. Good morning, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave, Steve, Soren, and Donovan with us today as we build up to Tottenham's fixture against Aston Villa at 2 o'clock today. Of course, international football is over. Club football is back. And off the basis of the work that we've done on the first part of the season, there's a golden opportunity for us now to be able to capitalise on it and sort of kick on. However, in years gone by, this is the period where we usually struggle and we sort of fall off after such a promising start. So we're going to have plenty of discussions today around that, plenty of discussions again around the goalkeeper, because there was reports that emerged a couple of days ago about Kinski's development behind the scenes, sort of regressing and stuff like that, which I found very, very interesting. Also, Colin Mawani back, should be in the squad today. Is he fit enough to start? Is he not? We've plenty of things to talk about today. Let's welcome a few people in. Go around, see how the panel is this morning, and then we are going to crack on because we've got plenty to talk about. But how great is it to have Tottenham Hotspur back, and we're at home as well. Also, home form hasn't been great, something we need to rectify, and something we will talk about today as well. Big up, Patricia. Good to see you. She says, come on, you Spurs. We've also got Spurs GCTV. Good morning, Graham. Says, morning, lads. It feels like we have been waiting an eternity, but Spurs are finally back. Come on, you Spurs. Well, next season, I think they're going to make the international break 3 weeks long instead of having 2. We've got another one coming up, in a couple of weeks' time as well. So it's killing the momentum of this Premier League season, and it does look like next year they're going to actually rectify it, which is good to see. Shem Tam says, morning, Dave. Sleepy time, Jack and panel. Hope all are well today. Finally, Spurs are back. Got my jersey on, even though we've never won, with me wearing it, and all is right with Spurs in the Spurs world. Come on, you Spurs. What jersey did you get this year, Shem Tam? Let me know. Did you get the white, the yellow, or the black? I think all 3 of them are actually nice this year, to be fair. Big up. Who else have we got here? We also have Wembley 1 in the house. Wembley, good to see you, my man. Morning, boys, and all in the chat. Tough game upcoming against a resurgent Villa. I think that's a great word. They are sort of were on the rise anyway before the international break, picking up points. He says a really good test for us to start off on a full week. Squad depth and quality sure to be tested. Come on, you Spurs. Look, today ain't going to be an easy game, by the way. Unai Emery sets his teams up very well, but one thing that Aston Villa have done to us over the years is they've got very physical with us. And in years gone by and in times gone by, maybe we've shirked away from that battle. It'd be interesting to see today with the likes of Paulinho, Romero as captain and stuff like that. Are we up for the physical test? Big up, George Carolus. Think you've seen the last of Ange in the EPL? I think so, that's for sure. Especially, 29 minutes after kickoff yesterday, he was gone. Absolutely mad. But you know what I'm surprised about, George? The amount of Spurs fans that didn't like him, but yet they're the same ones that are tweeting about him every week, which is absolutely insane. They're absolutely obsessed with the guy, yet they absolutely hate him, which I don't get, to be honest with you. Everyone knows my policy. Once you're out of the door at Tottenham Hotspur, I don't really care how you get on elsewhere. But it seems like Spurs fans are obsessed with Ange Postecoglou. We also have John Tucker. Big up, guys. Big up, John. Good to see you. We also have Giddy Haps. Big up, everyone. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Man or lady, actually, I'm not quite sure. Let me know. I've just gone rogue there. I don't even know. Let me know. Mark New says, big up, Dave and Jack and everyone in the chat, and the mighty South Stand 2-0. Oh, are you going to the game today, Marky, in the South Stand? Let me know. That's something else as well, actually, that we really need to improve on. Like that South Stand, we mentioned on last one on Spurs tonight when I was on there. I think it was a great point. That was built to be like Dortmund's, and it's nowhere near it. Generates nowhere near it. the atmosphere or anything like that. But it does seem like, that Spurs are about to Ben Bryant, Arsenal fan. I won't say good morning to you. Alpesh Patel, good to see you. Morning of the game. In a few minutes, need these 3 points to be up there in the table. Absolutely spot on. We need to keep look, I would argue, I think today we have to get off to a good start, sort of laying out on the marker how we want to attack these upcoming fixtures. Alpesh Patel. We've also got Daddy Bibi in the house. Good morning. Good to see you. Are you at the game today? Let me know. Singularity, great to see you as well. This is morning all. J-Mac in the house. Big up, Davey. Steve, Soren, and Donovan. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, J-Mac. Good to see you. How are you and the family down in Limerick? We've also got Q7 morning panel and chat. Happy Sunday to all. Do you know what? I forgot today was even Sunday. It's just match day to me. We've got Limpy down under. Oh, I want the international break winning sandwich. We've also got Joe Blogs, evening people, not going to lie, can't see us winning today, as we've been really poor in previous games and we haven't got our mojo back. Dave made a great point. It's a tough game and we are consistently soft. I would argue I think that's something I have put on the side in years gone by, and I think it's been a fair point. But I think with the addition of Paulinho, I think making Romero captain and, just bringing in Kudus as well and stuff like that, we are a much more sort of physical, robust teams than what we have been in years gone by. Where I really noticed it, Joe, was actually against PSG at the start of the season when we were lining up in the box to put throw-ins and corners and free kicks in. The size of our players compared to maybe some of the oppositions, I think it really, it will work out in our favour and it will help us be competitive from set pieces. We'll take a few more comments and then we will crack on. Alan Leslie, morning everyone. Looking forward to the game, expecting 2-0 and Romero to score. Come on, man. If we get a run bomblicious today, I'll be all over it. We've also got Joff in the house. Good morning. Good to see you, Hasper. Good morning to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. We also have Wayne Bonner in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well as well. Proper football is back. 2-0 Spurs. Destiny 5, great to see you. Hopefully you're keeping them well. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Dave. Third in the league in 7, but we apparently are soft today.
No, we're not soft.
Spurs. I think for many fans, the big sort of concern is actually more about the attacking play. Is the way we're playing going forward sustainable? But look, to Joe Plug's point, about sort of maybe being poor in some games before the international break. Well, it sort of kicks off the first talking point today, gentlemen. Like, look, Tottenham are enjoying a brilliant start to the new campaign under Thomas Frank. This season we were all sat in third. This season we were sat in third in the Premier League behind Arsenal and Liverpool, heading into this weekend. But we have been here before, ladies and gentlemen. Spurs flying high early, only to fall away. Historically, this is when Spurs fall off October to December. It's often derailed a lot of our seasons. We haven't really been able to cope with the fixture schedule that comes through in this period. We'll start with you, Soren. Do you sense anything different about this side under Thomas Frank? Are there early signs we might actually sustain a top 4 push this time?
I feel as though, like we were discussing just before we started, if you go back to the Conte era and the Jose and a little bit under Ange, but not quite as much, when we played poor and still picked points up, you never really thought it was going to get a lot better. Under Conte, you kind of got the feeling of this is how we're going to play and this is how it's going to be. And the football might not be exciting and, it could be boring, but we could pick up 3 points and not play well. Whereas under Frank, kind of get a little bit more of the football hasn't clicked yet. We're stronger defensively. We look more stronger in midfield, but our front line just hasn't clicked. And as soon as that clicks, you kind of think this could be quite an exciting team. And as long as we can keep picking up points while we're playing poorly, you kind of, for me, get the feeling that when it does all click, we're going to go on a good, exciting run. And I just look at the team and think, hopefully we've got the right manager in now. The transition within the club seems to be a positive transition, and I don't know. It just feels as though we're entering a period where we can probably look and call ourselves the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. We can start to believe good things are coming our way, and let's just hope it's not another false dawn. But I'm positive over this team, and
Yeah.
You know, where people are saying it was soft, I don't think was soft. I think it's the same old mistakes. It's player mentality, and whether you want to call that soft or not, I don't think soft's the right word. I think it's just a lack of concentration for a full 90 minutes, which the big teams have. That doesn't mean we're soft, because we are certainly harder to beat. And you know, anybody that tells me we're not a more defensive looking team compared to the last 2 years, especially, then I don't know what football they're watching. I think we're on the right way. I think we've toughened up. I think we've become more stable, and you know, just the addition of Paulina in that number 6 role, I think has changed us totally. And we're a totally different team. And look, Frank said when he first came in, the first thing he needs to do is make us more defensive, and that's what we're seeing. And yeah, I mean, sometimes the football hasn't been great, but don't know. You just get the feeling that most of the time we're going to do something within the game that's going to help us score. And look, we're not conceding 4 and 5 goals, so we're always within. You know, I mean, there's probably been one game this season where you've watched it and thought we've got no chance in this game. Whereas every other game, you kind of always look and think we could come back, or we could draw, we can get 3 points. And when you've got that belief, then that means your team's in a better position than it has been.
I think there also has to be an understanding in the magnitude of the job Thomas Frank had to do coming in here. You know, he had to try and rectify a piss poor home form, try and rectify a piss poor away form. You know, he had to make us more solid to beat, but also it was a difficult job knowing he didn't really have the forward line, you know, to go. So he had to find a way to keep us in games and give us a chance to go and nick them. And I think he's done a very good job in that regard. However, with the additions of Kudus, Mawani back now, Simmons back now, I don't think Thomas Frank is going to get as much leeway moving forward if he doesn't get that attack sort of going, because we did bring in players to sort of improve that situation for him. But all in all, I think he's done a good job up to date. I do agree with Stevie in terms of the rotation. I think for me, it's just my way. If I was manager, I prefer to get my best team out there as consistently as I can and look to build up them partnerships, pick up points. I think there's been a couple of points dropped due to Frank's rotation. However, with the amount of problems he had to come in and fix, there was always going to be trial and error, you know, mistakes, and maybe a couple of points dropped here and there. But what I would argue, although Thomas Frank has made us more defensively solid, and this is no slight at Joe's or Conte, by the way, I have huge respect for these guys, what they've done in the game and in terms of world football. But we're not as defensive as they were. We don't sit back as deep, but also we're nowhere near as gung-ho as Postecoglou. But you know, there's sort of like that happy medium, and with that happy medium, I would hope it gives us a chance of actually sustaining this fixture schedule that we've got coming up. But I mean, Steve, what is the biggest factor in us maintaining this form? Is it down to Thomas Frank's tactics? Because look, he's been lauded as a tactical guru. Now, look, I would argue I haven't seen it, you know, much in terms of change, bar that one game against PSG where he done something a little bit different. Is it down to the mentality of manager and players, or is it down to squad depth?
I think it's a combination of a couple of different things, right? And I also think it's mentality as well, too. You know, you were talking about fixing piss poor situations where the club. How about the mentality where it was okay to lose? Losing was accepted. And the issue with that is it's like, you know, when people use the term soft, that actually kind of gets me a little pissed off, because this isn't soft. You know, in years past, we'd see this team concede a goal early, and we would actually just lay down and let other teams run roughshod over this crew, right? So that was one of the biggest things that I think Thomas Frank had to overcome, was the mentality of this team. A roster that actually had talent, but didn't necessarily have the belief that they were capable of hanging with some of the Premier League's best, right? And we've seen it so far this year. Yes, there was bad performances. But that being said, when you kind of look over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks, right, when this team didn't necessarily get off to the greatest starts and they would concede, this team didn't allow teams to roll over. As a matter of fact, they found their way back into the match, finding the equalizer or finding a late equalizer and still being able to get a result when otherwise you would just assume that the game would be lost, right? To me, that's a sign of a very strong team. That are still trying to figure out how this attacking four is actually going to play out, right? Also, when you consider that we didn't have Randall Colomwani until this week, we still haven't had Dominic Slinky, so we still really had no idea who our number 9 was. On top of the fact that we're trying to cut in a very young left winger as well too, right? So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the attacking 4, and we really haven't seen Xavi in his natural position, right? So from that standpoint, right, when you consider all the moving parts and when you consider some of the rotation that has been, you kind of have to tip your cap to Thomas Frank, because he's still getting results when otherwise you would just assume that we would end up dropping points. So from that standpoint, right, it has to be a combination of Thomas Frank and then also the players picking up the slack.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And look, he's picked up points too, Dave, but I do think the fixtures were kind to us. I'm not being funny, but when the fixtures were announced, I expected us coming into this international break to be in and around the top 4. I expected us to, get off to a decent start in the Champions League. This is the real test of this squad and Thomas Frank coming up. And I don't want to sit here and sound negative, but it's just under previous regimes, and it's been many. It's not just been an isolated incident. It's been many. We've really failed to sustain this congested fixture list. However, I would argue, I think the squad is in a better place than what it has been in years under previous managers and stuff like that. Obviously, we've no Kane and Son to sort of bail us out going forward. But in general, I think the squad has a lot more strength and depth in it maybe than in years gone by, which I think is a huge, huge plus. Down to you, Donovan. Actually, just quickly, I'm just going to take a few comments here from the chat, Donovan, and then we're going to get your thoughts on it in general, because I actually haven't really heard too much of your thoughts, on what you've made to the start to the season up to this point and stuff like that. We've got Aiden in the house. Big up, Aiden. He says, I think we have a stronger squad, a better manager at the helm, and much more difficult to beat. It is time for us to click. Absolutely spot on. Kulu says, Frank has never beaten an Unai team. Hope it starts there. I think 6 attempts, no wins.
Didn't they get a 4-1? Didn't they get a 4-1 2 years ago at Villa Park?
Not sure.
In the 2023-2024 season, towards the end of the season, didn't they pick up a 4-1 at Villa Park?
I don't know.
I think they did.
I don't know.
I think they did.
Then all these journalists need to go and recheck the facts that they're putting out. J Max says we are much more balanced and solid. There's been great green shoots in how we attack. Hopefully it will continue, especially at home. Absolutely spot on, Jay. We've got Limpy down under, a deeper squad. A few key injuries at the moment holds us in better place at this stage of the season. Or fewer key injuries than maybe last season. Absolutely spot on, Limpy down under. I think you're absolutely correct there. We've also got Wayne Bonner. He says, we're not a soft team under Frank. We simply lack the necessary firepower up front. Desperately need to sort out the striker situation. I completely agree with that. But look, Wayne, tried to warn everybody it wasn't a good idea to say, let's just cash in on Harry Kane. I tried, and now everyone's sitting here going, we need to fix a striker problem. I'm not being funny, but a lot of fans created because they wanted to cash in on the guy. And we've got, who else have we got here? We've got Q7 says, physically as a team, we are stronger for sure, but I do think we will show a soft mentality at times. But that's been a club issue for years, not a Frank issue. And you're absolutely spot on that in Q7. Look, you've heard plenty of managers walk away saying, there's no desire to win at Tottenham. It's okay to drop points. You've heard the likes of Kane and other players leave Tottenham sort of spouting the same message, which is a huge concern. But I would argue a lot of it goes down to your captain pick. He sort of is the one that stamps the culture within the squad. And that's why I think Thomas Frank coming in and selecting Romero was absolutely genius. I think you need a guy, like you look at Romero's credentials so far in terms of international honours, picking up the Europa League at Tottenham. The guy's a winner. The guy's also aggressive. He wants to do everything he can to be able to win games. And I think that's the sort of captain you need at your football club. And I think that sort of mentality is even more important in the modern game than maybe in years gone by. Q7, absolutely spot on. Donovan, tell me. I haven't heard your opinions. I've heard a lot of different varying opinions on, how Thomas Frank has done to the start of this season. How well do you think he's done, and do you think this is sustainable moving forward? Because that's the big question on everyone's lips. You see great things that you're like, that's sustainable, but then you look at the like of the forward line, you're like, well, bigger games coming up, that's not sustainable. Something has to change there. So where are you with it all?
Yeah, no, I hear that as well. I echo the fact that like it's good to hear polarizing opinions and other people's opinions on the matter. And like I never even considered the fact that over rotation might have dropped just a couple of points in these last couple of games, but have to do what you have to do with the young squad. And a lot of this was coming from Lucas Bergvall's revival too, and like his total start of his amazing career of the young starlet boy. Like he's being already compared to Dele Alli, right? We already know where that went, and so as keeping his head on straight and also managing his minutes. And I'd like to Joel Pelini coming in, and what an amazing signing! Like that is the number 6, as the number 6 from Fulham, right? That's the number 6 who won the most tackles by 120, like in the next column. Like he's on a different level than N'Golo Kanté just based off his body frame, right? The guy's an absolute unit. He's covers half the pitch and two or three strides. And no, but the system's amazing. Like Thomas Frank to me is a genius. The way he runs through the game, the way he adapts, the way he incorporates psychology in football, and he blends it all into the game of life, right? It's quite amazing to see. And the fact that he has this infrastructure, like he basically has his temple built for modern football. And it all started with the investment from me way back in the day for that amazing academy and that amazing structure, like White Hart Lane, when they first did that way back when Bale got sold. And then we watched it evolve over the American tour when Poch came in. Now it's like the icing on the cake, and hopefully this core group of players, the ones who've like took the test of resilience, like that was like a decade and a half of like starved silverware, and just that's an ultimate test of resilience right there for like mankind in general, like to not have success and then to be like finally have it, right? And so now that's cemented. That's something solid you can build off of, right? And so pyramid's a success, like it's the next step. So this is historically a really tough time for Tottenham Hotspur. Like Dave said, like the fixtures are going to come fast and thing, and like we get one more international break, so it's like that kind of splits it up. But we don't even have James Madison. We don't even have Dejan Kulusevski back, right? So it's like future's high. Like we have a lot of ceiling to grow into, and we don't even know what that looks like yet. Plus, promised investment in January. Like even though they're kind of hinting that like January is not going to be a very busy window, so a lot of topics kind of like to talk about, but it's just all positive. But what I have to say about our system of football, it just generates constant attack. Like we'll have games where it's like, yeah, we'll sit and we'll absorb pressure and we'll be able to sit back on the ball and like do what we need to do defensively. But the way we grow into the game, and it's this organic, just transition of football that like generates attack. Like we will knock it to the wing and we'll do proper wing play. Like we actually have wingers who do what wingers do now. And it sounds so basic, but the fact that we'll have players that can beat their men and like find that final ball in the final third, and then people in the final third taking intelligent decisions. Like you look at Joel Pelini's goal, was that to get the winner, this equalizer or something, where he took his shirt off there and he placed it in that far corner there. Just that intelligence of football, like that only comes with synchronicity of teams that have played together for like almost seasons, and we're already getting that like 2 or 3 games in. And the last thing I'll say before I pass it on is that the fact that Thomas Frank has historically over the seasons have had players that have come out and like this, they're fast that they'll run with their socks off for the guy. The way he's able to unite, just like spin together so many diverse like backgrounds and like cultures in a locker room, that is something a testament to leadership as well, because you know there's no difference, there's no surprise in the fact that like historically a lot of his players have come from different cultural backgrounds. If you look at like Brentford's players and their history of success, and Tottenham and who's emerging now, like a big hat off to Mohamed Kudus too. He started off the season as well on fire. So yeah, we have a lot of momentum, and like even if we do start picking up these scrappy results, if these 1-1s, these 2-2s, still grinding away at that momentum, right? Like historically, we'd have been dropping points, right? Or worst case, not winning those challenges, you pick up injuries. But now we're the ones dictating. We're the ones winning those 50-50s. And it seems like we're on the front foot now. So it's just positive times for Tottenham, man. That's why I look at it.
I think you're absolutely spot on in terms of, how Frank has come together and sort of, united that dressing room. I think in years gone by, Jose Mourinho sort of running laps with Ndombele and stuff like that. I mean, you're sort of you're not really setting any standards when you're out there doing that with the likes of Ndombele and stuff like that. Because I'm not being funny, as a professional athlete, you should be ready to go, for every single game that's coming up. You should be ready to be able to train. You should be in peak condition. And I think the fact that in years gone by, managers have almost let players sort of buy without doing everything, without working hard and stuff like that. Whereas with Thomas Frank, he has a zero dickhead policy. Everyone has to buy into what he's doing. With the way he sets up defensively and all, it's structured, it's disciplined, it takes hard work, and you have to have people to buy in to be able to execute. And I think that's one of Thomas Frank's big things. He managed to do it at Brentford as well. They managed to sort of punch above their weight because everybody was pulling their weight. Everyone was working hard for the same common goal, and that's absolutely key. In years gone by, for instance, under Jose, we had the Welsh Mafia, the French Mafia, we had different cliques, stuff like that. I think the biggest thing now is that everyone seems to be geared and focused on winning games of football rather than the lifestyle that comes with it and everything else. I think you make an absolute great point there, Donovan. And look, I've no doubt that I think Frank, is tactically astute to be able to manage this sort of period coming up and that. But look, I'd argue, I don't think Tottenham hire bad managers. I think Tottenham hire good managers. I think squad depth has maybe been what has let us down in these fixtures when a manager has tried to rotate and stuff like that, when the fixtures are coming in every 3 days. When we rotate, we've often seen a drop-off. So I think for me, the big question is Frank can have all the ideas he wants, but do we actually have the squad depth to be able to continue picking up results without having setbacks like we've seen in years gone by?
I think it's more of like the fact that how you play your football, because I'm watching some of these games and it's like people are comparing it like to a slow start. Like, well, if you're getting 355 passes like in the first half alone or whatever it is, like some crazy amount of possession, just controlling the game, that's controlling the momentum, that's controlling how much energy you're putting in. The less you're like spending in the red zone as an athlete, and like then you can like start putting consistent lineups together, and then those relationships can form, and then the natural progression of football can happen, right? And that's the way Thomas Frank plays too, right? So if we do have I don't want to come out the gate slow here. We're at the home stadium, man. Like I want to go up firing the pistol. I want to get knocked back to Vicario, send it long, and just go and then pose ourselves on that first 50-50, win that header, and then play off from there, and really get Kolo Muani involved. At the same time, though, he's a pacey guy. We're a fast team on transition. It's like 1-2, boom, we're into it. We're already in the behind, right? So there's a lot of dynamics here at play.
No, there is. There's a hell of a lot of dynamics here at play. Look, when it comes to the squad depth, I'd argue, I think defensively, I'm okay with some of the changes we made back there. I don't think they come back to bite us. I'd argue in midfield, potentially, I'm okay with some of the changes in there. I think Bergvall and Sarr would be good enough to be able to put some points on the board. I think where my big worry in terms of the squad depth comes in is in that forward line. We've seen with Johnson, you can't rely on the kid. We've seen with the likes of Matisse Tal, can't really rely on the kid. I know he scored against Leeds, and hopefully that's a confidence booster and he kicks on. But off the bite-sized sample we've had since last January, you can't rely on the kid if you want to rotate him in. Udebur is hit and miss. We're very heavily reliant on a Xavi Simons to sort of play every game. We're very heavily reliant on the likes of Akudas to play every game. Steve Soren, how do you feel on the squad depth? Do we have the squad depth to be able to rotate and maintain what we're doing? Because, like I keep saying, in years gone by, when managers have done it, it's cost us a Carabao Cup. It's cost us, in Europe. It's cost us points in the Premier League. Do you see it being a bit different this year with the squad depth?
I think in certain position groups, I definitely think there's adequate depth, right? Specifically inside the midfield three. I think there's adequate squad depth, and I think that's only going to get better as we get closer to December. But that, as of right now, I would probably assume that the wing clique is probably going to be in the attacking three. And of course, I hate to say it, but I actually don't think there's going to be adequate squad depth until we actually get to that January window before we're going to be able to kick on. Now, granted, it's going to help because we're going to get Rando Kolo Muani back today, and very soon we're probably going to get Dominic Solanke. So that's actually going to help with the rotation within the striker group. But that being said, it's like when you look on the left-hand side and you have Wilson Odobert out there, in order to get squad depth, you're going to have to shade Xavi Simons out there on the left, or you're going to have to make do with Brendan Johnson, and that's actually a massive weak link. But outside of that, I would probably
can't break down the team. No way, they're not going to break down their teams over here.
Correct, right? And then and from that standpoint, if we're not actually trying to be direct with balls over the top and trying to get a Kolomawani on the end of it on transition, right, we're going to be potentially one-sided to the right-hand side, trying to force balls down the right-hand side, trying to make something happen with Mohamed Kudus. But outside of that, I would probably assume the midfield depth is okay. I think the defensive depth is actually pretty good. So from that standpoint, there are different options that we can rotate. But it's not going to get better until January when it comes to the attacking three.
Yeah, look,
well, Kulu's going to come back. Yeah. Look, we're going to get Kulu back, but
I'm sort of with you on that. Like, look, I don't have trust in, a lot of the front players from last year. I think, where my big concern comes in over this sort of fixture period coming up, I think, is all we've done is shift the problem from one side to the other.
Yeah.
In terms of from what we've seen last year. And, many of the arguments last year was that's very easy to set up against. That's very easy to sort of play against. All you got to do is shift, the majority of your bodies to one side, stop the creativity coming down that side, and then therefore you sort of stop Tottenham going forward. So it's not sustainable. I would argue, though, at least we're a lot more potent from set pieces, which even if we're not rip-roaring going forward, long throws into the box, direct free kicks, direct corners, we always have a chance to nick goals. But if we do want to go and compete with some of the better teams in the league and stuff like that we've got coming up, it is something that he does have to rectify, this forward line. Now, look, you would hope, he was... people credit him for a lot of the way he developed players. I put that question out there at Brentford with their data-led scouting model. How much is it actually down to the model being very, very successful, and how much is it actually down to Frank sort of developing these players? Ideally, look, realistically, I think it's probably a bit of both. You're hoping that Frank can develop. Maybe an Udeberg can maybe drag a bit more out of Tell. But there's just players where I don't think he's going to drag more out of, like Brennan Johnson. The guy's 24 years of age. He's not the same age as Tell Udeberg. He's 4 years there senior. He's sort of ready to hit his prime. And there's so many deficiencies in his games. In his game, there's nothing Frank can really do. Like, if the guy can't hold up a ball, Frank can't make him do that. If a guy can't skin a man and put a good cross into the box, that's nothing Frank can do.
It reminds me of like a Daniel James. It reminds me of a Daniel James from Manchester United. Sorry to interrupt you, Dave, but it reminds me of a Daniel James where it's like what's he? He's really going to hit it. He's speedy. He's quick. He's got all the dynamics. He's going to hit it. He's going to hit it. Because at that level, to break in the top six, you need to be consistent. You need to He's all saw what happened to Garnacho, right? And now look at him, right? But if I could just add on to that is that the ability to not just to bring out the best in these players, but to make them feel comfortable in their environment. That's where you hope that the likes of an Odegaard can start flourishing and become more of a man. Hopefully he can step up, and because he was on that Ballon d'Or shortlist back in 2011 at 21, dude. The talent there, and they're lighting up goals for the U21s, dude, left, right, and center. So just taking that next step forward and being consistent, and the fact that some of these young players are doing better things than our senior players. Everybody knows Brennan Johnson's not going to be the answer going forward, but it's that investment in January we can look forward to. Hopefully some of this 100 million, we can be a little bit forward going forward. A lot of it's going to the women's side of it, but that's all right. We can take some and hopefully, I don't know, be more opportunists and we need something on that left side to balance out, because there's a reason Richarlison started on the left wing in the the Europa League final there. Yeah. So
thing is, I don't think we can afford to wait till January. At the end of the day, come January, by then our season could be over, like it has been in years gone by. What clubs are going to want, what decent players that are going to want to come, to a club that maybe their season is looking like it's going to peter out for the rest of the campaign. They're only sort of seeing out the last few months. I think, Thomas Frank has to find the solutions with this period coming up and at least find something so that when January does come around, there's a lot more interest there from players that want to come here, especially if we're still in the hunt for some competitions, which I think, and I don't want to hear anyone say that's not the aim. Frank has come out and said it himself. That's the aim. He wants to try and win trophies and stuff like that.
Well, for me, yeah. Sorry, the last thing I'll say is my litmus test will be away at St. James's Park, because we have the best managers crumble there, so it's that for me, that's the litmus test, and that's for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say at home against Chelsea, but yeah, that's all. St. James Park. That's a good call right there.
Fair. Yeah. Darren, anything you want to add on that, my man?
Yeah, I think sort of listening to what everybody's saying, and it kind of almost comes back to what we were discussing before we started, where we were saying, is the rotation a good idea or not? And then we're rotating the players on the left, and then we're sort of complaining that none of them are kicking on and doing well because, you know, they're not getting much game time, some of them. And to me, you know, you said it there that if Frank's going to improve the players, then he doesn't seem to be improving our players in the set on the left side, especially. But let me finish.
No, I was
But
just going to add to that just quickly, Søren.
Yeah.
The one
Go
big
on then.
thing on that everybody missed when it comes to the training. We were never going to have the time he had at Brentford on the training pitch because we're traveling every 3 days. Thomas Frank said it
Right.
himself a couple of weeks ago. I'm getting one training session in before a game when the fixtures are coming in like that. So there's only so much he can actually develop players on the training pitch if they don't have the time.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was about to say myself. And you know, the fact that we're rotating those left players a lot tells, you know, we're not giving anybody kind of a chance to grasp that position and take it by the horns and have the time to almost play themselves into form on that side. I mean, if you look at the right, Kudos is almost nailed on to play every game, whether he's fit or not. And you know, he's kind of the only real right-sided player that we've got that's exciting. The left side, you've got sort of three players that two in Odebear and Tell that hopefully have the potential to come on. I mean, we watch Tell, you know, when he's playing for the under-21s and that, and he's far more confident playing with them than he is for us at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the player that we kind of need to come into our squad. And whether it's because of the flack he's got from some of the fans, I don't know. Whether he's just, you know, that step up to senior levels and things like that is too much for him at the moment. I don't know. But it's waiting for these players to develop. And I mean, I personally think Tell and Odebear will come good. I think they are good players. And it's just a confidence thing. And it's the same we've said with so many times. It's a confidence thing with these players that as soon as they get that confidence, suddenly they just go on and kick on and become that player that we've been waiting for. And you know, if that confidence doesn't come, they just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And the more they get worse, the more the fans get on the back, the worse they become. And to me, I would like to see Odebear get a few games as a run because I think he's quite an exciting little player. And put Xavi in the middle, and you know that kind of almost gives you the confidence to go forward. And you know, when we talk about the front lines, we're all talking about Moani, and as though he's going to be the saviour. He's probably, you know, even if he plays today, it's going to take him probably half a dozen matches at least to actually get fit. I mean, he's not match fit. He's nowhere near match fit. And, you know, he could come out today, say he starts or whatever, or comes on as a sub and doesn't do anything. How many of the fans are going to have a meltdown saying, oh, look, you know, he's not good enough, or he's not this and he's not that. And, you know, again,
the reason why we're looking
for the chance.
The reason why we're looking for him to be our saviour, though, and everyone's looking to him as the saviour, is because other players haven't done the job, you know, and even in his absence, you know, they've been given another chance and they still haven't done the job. And I do agree with you. I think it's going to take, you know, a couple of games at least. The only hope is he's trained 2 weeks over the international break. You know, he's played behind the closed door friendly. But, you know, up until that point, he hadn't actually done anything. He hasn't had a preseason, nothing. So I think that's one big thing. I think you're spot on, Søren, that people have to factor in when it does come to Moani, that he hasn't had a preseason. You know, these 2 weeks of training is the first sort of stuff he's done, you know. So it's sort of like, how sharp is he going to be?
Well,
you know, I mean, he is a striker.
I'll be quite surprised if he starts today.
Same. Yep, same.
Yeah, I think he should probably come on maybe for 30 minutes at the end of the game, just and then maybe the same in the next game and then start him. But, you know, he's going to have to get match fit for us. He's going to have to understand the way our players play. And look, I mean, that could be a really exciting duo with Simmons and Moani up front. But until it happens and until we get into that position, then I think, you know, we've got to be patient. But, you know, with Johnson, I think there's few comments in the chat, and I think most of us are pretty much in agreement as well. I think January or summer, he probably does need a new club.
100%. 100%. I think he does. I think, he's just not at the level we need if we really want to kick on, even as
He's a Postecoglou man. We'll just say he's a Postecoglou man because he did his job. He got the trophy, and let's move him on.
I was hoping Forest were going to keep Postecoglou.
40 million, dude. 40 million.
Well,
man.
was he really though a Postecoglou guy? Because he certainly wasn't doing the things that Postecoglou needed him to do.
Yeah,
we don't know that.
At the time when we sold Harry Kane, we needed someone sort of, what is it? Not club trained, but sort of homegrown and stuff like that. We knew that,
Sure.
When you go back to the time, our market was massively reduced because we had to shop in that homegrown market. Did we do it to the best of our ability? No, not whatsoever. But I think Soren did also make a great point in terms of, Spurs fans are just waiting around. Like, when you look at it on paper, we do have good options. You've got Kudus, you've got Simmons, you've got Mawani. You'd like to think Solanke can sort of contribute over the course of the season. You've got Madison to come back. You've got Kulusevski to come back, stuff like that. So on paper, you look at it, we're just waiting for a lot of these guys to come back, which goes to show anyone that blamed all the injuries on Ange Postecoglou last year, it was absolutely a nonsensical argument to make, because the amount of them that we're carrying this year, which is absolutely madness. But look, I do want to take a few comments from the people at home and the listeners that are tuning in. Let's take some comments and then we will crack on. The last question I have then will be around, do we have the leadership also to help maybe drive us through this period, which I think is an interesting question. But Faz Radfar, 4-0 Spurs, says history of big margin win versus Villa, time for 4-0 Spurs. Now, Stevie, you are correct. We I think in our last 6 games, I think we've beaten Villa twice, and I think we've lost 4. The stat that I think people were talking about earlier on is Thomas Frank has never beaten Unai Emery. But you're right, we did smack them up there 4-1 a couple of seasons ago. But you're absolutely spot on. And to Faz's point, he's hoping another one's coming here today. Look, that guy done dirty on Matt Doherty when he was here. That guy done dirty on Bentancur. Matty Cash has, and I think Romero as well. It's a bit of a problem with him. So I'm hoping today sort of get some retribution for Asrad Farr. Good to see you. We've got Al Dente, member for 14 months. Big up, all 2-0 win today. Romero and Simmons. Come on, you Spurs. Do you know what? Everyone's saying Romero to score. I wonder, do I need to run down to bookies and stick on a cheeky fiver? Because it is coming. He's been unlucky. He's had a couple of goals disallowed and stuff like that. But I feel like a Rombaumlicious is coming. Big up Al Dante. Good to see you, my man. We also have Shem Tam in the house, member for 17 months. Why can't we make our stadium a fortress? Come on, you Spurs. Well, look, just after we talk about the leadership, do we have the right leadership to push us through this next period? We are going to come on to this home form. Maybe what is the reason behind it and why I think today is so important to sort of rectify the home form, but also win and give us confidence heading into, Newcastle away, Everton away, another ground we don't do very well at and stuff like that. And then also when there's a period there, I think you've got Man United, Copenhagen and Chelsea all at home, back to back to back, if I'm correct. So again, we need to rectify the home form because some of our bigger games in this run are at home. If we can rectify that, it'll give us confidence heading into them games, Shem. Good to see you. Seven, great to see you're back around these parts. How you keeping, my man? Good to see you, buddy. We have also got J-Mac in the building. The narrative last year that we have a good squad just needs coaching and tactical coach. We have said coach and now have strengthened so folks can't be crying for more players. Well, J-Mac, that wasn't the case with me. I argued about it being a very poor squad, especially the front line being absolutely piss poor. I always maintained and I've always said with Thomas Frank coming in, there's not much he's going to be able to do coaching-wise with the current options. It was always going to take significant investment in the likes of Kudus, in the likes of bringing in Simmons and that in here, which the club have gone and done. So I feel like I should get a free pass on this one and I should be allowed to complain because I didn't drive that narrative last year, J-Mac. Good to see you. Derek Kutcher says, good morning, Dave and panel. Johnson is a goal hanging waste of space. Come on, Spurs. Honestly, I was saying this a couple of weeks ago. He reminds me of the guy on the playground. We've all played football on the playground. The one guy that sits up beside the goalkeeper and chats to him and then waits for the ball to bounce to him and he just taps it home. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what we paying him to do that? I mean, it's a joke. We've got Anna Cole in the house watching from the Welsh Valleys. Come on, you Spurs. Wales is a country that I want to I'd love to get to. The only time I've been in Wales is in Holyhead. I think Holyhead is in Wales, isn't it? But then I've just hopped on a train straight out of there. But I'd actually love to go and see Wales, and I'm dying to do the day trip to the theme park over there. I just need to keep losing this belly, and then I don't have to worry about when I'm walking up to the roller coasters whether the thing's going to lock on me or not. You know, the embarrassment of it not locking and being told to walk back down in front of everyone be embarrassing. We've got Kate Rixham in the house. Dave, I agree with you, but we need a left winger in January. Absolutely spot on. Seven says Leeds cost me 2.4k yesterday. Oh, lad, I've been there before with accumulators where you've got big money riding on it and then someone lets you down. I remember it was like, I think Everton and Wigan years and years and years ago had a massive one drew in, and I think, you know, someone scored a late equaliser. I was ready to quit my job in Everton. I was raging. Big up, Seven. Good to see you. Noel says Semenyo, also Limpy down under. I think Semenyo is the popular fan choice at the minute to sort of come in and, you know, offer something off that left-hand side. Subdue Light says, hoping for a 2-1 win. Come on, you Spurs. And William Webb says, great to be on the show where podcasters talk sense. Really appreciate that, William Webb, because to be honest with you, I feel like, not for the one to try him, but I feel like I'm a bit of a divisive figure around the Spurs community. You know, you got other people that go, can't listen to that guy, he's an idiot, he's a dumbass, he's this, he's that. And then you got other people that say they like listening to me. So I don't know what to make of it, but really appreciate it, William Webb. Thank you very much. But guys, feel free to keep getting your comments in the chat. As you can see, your host here is trying to do a magnificent job today. We're trying to keep you guys involved at home and bring up all your comments. Feel free to, you know, put in your membership chats, or feel free to throw in super chats here like some of these guys have already done, or grab a channel membership. And basically, these are just great ways to help support your favorite podcasters and help, you know, kick them on a little bit. But guys, lastly, on sort of, you know, is this sustainable moving forward? Is the squad leadership strong enough to drag us through these bad patches? Because I would argue, I love Romero being his captain. I'm not a fan of all this leadership group shit. I think it's just football gone woke. You know, too many cooks spoiled the broth. I think it should just be captain, vice captain. But hey ho, maybe I just live in the Stone Ages. May come out my cave at some point. But do we have the right leadership now to be able to sort of take us through these? Because I'd argue in years gone by, I think Lloris as captain, I've always said I thought was the wrong choice. You know, I don't think he had the sort of mentality to push us through when things went wrong. I also argued at the time when Son was made captain, I didn't like that Son was made captain just because he walks around the place smiling and stuff like that. And, you know, when things go wrong, I didn't think he was going to be the guy that was going to stand up and drag people through. Whereas when I look at Romero, I think he is that sort of guy. And I do believe we have the leadership to sort of kick us through this period. It'd be interested to see what you guys think. Donovan, you were laughing at me there.
Well, it's like, don't be smiling in front of Dave. Hey, don't be smiling. Hey, we're trying to win here. No, but I hear what you mean, though. Actually, by the way, just quick on Sonny, he's like 9 goals in 9 games in MLS, just so it's the cakewalk. And Thomas Mueller is taking my Vancouver Whitecaps and he's just running with them. So it's good to see the boys retiring. Yeah, right.
Vancouver.
Yeah. Hey, Seattle boys, eh? But the it's great to see the Oh, sorry, Vlad. I lost my train of thought. What were you talking about?
I was saying about the leadership. Do you think we've got the right leadership to?
Well, yeah, the two best center back pairing in the world, in my opinion. Right, we got the pace of Van de Ven to slide back, right, and we got the classic stop sweeper, right? Classic stop sweeper, back forward, 2 dynamic fullbacks and cover those spaces. You know, for me, it's Vicario. You saw what happened with Liverpool when they upgraded to Allison. That's all I'm going to say, right? And like, not saying that like he's gonna have a curious mistake in a Champions League final, but I don't want to give the guy an opportunity. Like, he's a great shot stopper. He's got world-class cat-like reflexes, right? But so did Lloris. But Lloris was levels above Vicario, and he made up for it and he won a World Cup, right? Do I see Vicario reaching that ceiling? Like, he's late in his career too. Is he 27, 28?
28 now.
Yeah, right. So, you know, if we do upgrade, and that's the same thing. I want a different sports, different parallels. I know apples to oranges, but the same thing with the Edmonton Oilers, man. Back-to-back seasons to the finals. Everybody knows it's like Skinner. It's like, are you going to upgrade on the goalie? He's going to be a great backup goalie. You know, just put that money down and get a solid number one. And, you know, what if we had Donnarumma, Vicario split? That's not the worst split in the world, dude. Like, you can upgrade significantly for like 40-50 million, you know, but that's just my opinion, dude. But for the leadership group, yeah, I think Van de Ven and Romero, having those two as people vocal that can like have their say, you know, that's perfect. And the Dutch think differently. They talk differently. They're intelligent. They're very intelligent beings, man. Like the Dutch are like that, dude. And to get young, confident Van de Ven again, it's like different Van de Ven. It's like he's not even scared of his hamstrings, dude. It's like he's a
Do you know
different
what
Van de Ven.
Do you know what it is for me? I think, maybe last season some people question maybe is Van de Ven a little tad soft, maybe. I think this year you're seeing a guy that's getting stuck
Correct.
in, I think he's maybe not as maybe fearful or afraid, I'm starting to see a bit more of an aggressive Van de Ven, but I'm not surprised. But if anyone goes back to the video, remember when they were driving Tottenham players home at one stage on the videos, the famous quote that I love from Mickey Van de Ven is, I make Romero more calm, which I think many people would argue you're seeing, and he makes me more aggressive, which I think you would argue you're sort of seeing with Mickey Van de Ven. And that was like 2 years ago. So I think what you're seeing is, that quote sort of coming true, really. Big up Jose as well, just quickly. Hopefully you enjoy your day out with Shawnee and Blaine at the stadium, and hopefully we go and get the win today. Big up El Tel Cockerel. Hopefully you enjoy yourself. I do get a slight bit jealous when people are like, I'm going to the game and meeting up with people and stuff like that, because I just wanted that. I'd love to be at every single game. Absolutely love it. And then also Phil Coys is another one I want to say hello to as well. Good to see you, Phil. Hopefully you're keeping well. And Simon, Tottenham till I die. Also, we have Tony Rodriguez in the house. Good to see you, Tony. Hopefully you're keeping well. And then Phil Coys has also come in here as well. Very, very kind of him with a super sticker. Let me go and open up the YouTube and let's see what this super sticker is, because right now I'm running through StreamYards and the comment comes through there. So let me just open up YouTube. Bear with me. Let's turn off the ad there. Put that on mute. Now you just gone with the sunshades are on. I think it's the wrong time of that for Phil, unless you're on holidays, my man. But no, I think he's just cool, calm, and collected ahead of today's fixture against Aston Villa. Big up, Phil. Good to see you in the building. Hopefully you're keeping well. Steve, sorry, anything you want to come in quickly on the back of the leadership, and then we will kick on and talk about our whole form.
Yeah, I think go ahead, Soren. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, personally, I was calling for Romero last year to be captain. I think there was no other choice this year. It had to be him. The only way it wouldn't have been him for me is if he didn't sign the new contract and was showing us that, he wanted to leave the club, then there was no point. But Romero as the captain, and not just that, the fact that, like we say, Mickey Van de Ven stepped up a little bit and he's becoming more and more vocal. And then you put Paulinho in front of them as well, who's can marshal that midfield and become a little bit more vocal. Then I think we've got a very good leadership team. Some people were calling for Vicario. No chance. He's not the captain material for me. He's too busy blaming everybody else on the pitch. Sonny, for me, last season should have been club captain, but not on pitch captain. He should have been like an ambassador captain for the club. He didn't have, I don't want to say the backbone because I don't mean it nastily. He's too nice. He was too nice a person to be a captain. And look, I think Sonny last season was the sort of player that most people would follow because they liked him, not because he was telling them to do things. And the problem was, and I don't blame Sonny, I blame the system. Sonny wasn't on form, and so if you're not on form, you don't lead by example, and that was the problem for Sonny last season, that he wasn't leading by example anymore, and that was his strength. That he would lead by example and pull players along, whereas Romero, he's a different animal. He's kind of more the Roy Keane type player, and some people say there isn't a place for that in football, but there is. And to me, he's the first name that should have been on that captain's list. And thankfully, Thomas Frank obviously saw that as well and made him captain. And perfect choice for me. Absolutely perfect.
Android 890 just quickly says Romero needs to start learning English now. He's
had
a long time
English.
On that, I was just going to say, the amount of players that I hear, ex-players coming out and saying, the perception was I couldn't speak English. I could speak perfect English. The reason, why I acted like I couldn't is because I didn't want to do all the media duties, all the club films for like YouTube and all that sort of shit. So a lot of these guys that are coming into the Premier League, they pretend they don't understand, but they do understand, believe me.
The one thing I would add to that is if you watch Romero in a game, it's funny how the referees can understand exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
If he's
Yeah.
not talking
Yeah.
English, then some of them, it's amazing how many of our referees must be multilinguistic then, because he can talk. He talks very good
Yeah,
English.
for sure.
Yeah.
What would be great though is if we could get them all to speak one foreign language that no one else understands, and they can communicate their tactics that way. So
What
that'd be
you mean like Irish?
well, yeah, Irish, but a lot of people over here don't even know how to speak it or understand it, to be honest with you. So maybe that's the right one to go to be honest with you. Stevie, anything else you want to mention on the leadership before we kick on and speak about home form, or do you want to get into it?
Yeah, no, here's the thing, right? I think we have the perfect combination of leadership these days, right? With Cudi Romero as the captain, but also when you think about João Palhinha, also involved as well, two guys that have been to the top of the mountain, that know exactly what the expectation level is. They're the ones that are spreading the gospel of Thomas Frank with inside that changing room. But it's not only those two, but when you think about some of the other players that are kind of on the periphery, guys like Rodrigo Betancourt and potentially Dejan Kulusevski that cut their teeth at Juventus, right? A club that has massive expectations, and the fans, seriously do not allow these guys, to have substandard play, right? So they, these guys understand exactly what the expectation level is here at Tottenham Hotspur, right? They're also the type of guys that have no problem holding other people's play accountable on top of their own as well, too, right? That's the type of leadership that's actually kind of gone missing for the last couple of years, right? So from that standpoint, I'm actually thrilled that we have strong personalities like Cudi Romero and João Palhinha. Yeah, 100%.
No, and absolutely, if we end up doing signing João Palhinha, which I think a report came out and said that's our first protocol, sort of that we want to prioritize and get done straight away. I think he should be another one that's maybe thrown into that leadership group. We'll take a couple more comments here, and we're going to speak about the home form. K32 says, Romero doesn't need to speak English. He speaks pure effing hard B. Absolutely spot on, K32. Absolutely spot on, my man. Big up, Kieran. Ronnie says, did people not see his interview when he was given the armband? Speaks very good English. Big up, Ronnie. Good to see you. We also have Phil Coy's 2-0 win for the boys today. Very cool, calm and collective with Spurs right now. Quietly going along with our business at the moment, telling kudos with the goals. Come on, you effing Spurs. And I think, do you know what? That's one big thing I think Thomas Frank deserves a lot of credit for. In years gone by, managers with their sort of egos and their personalities have almost brought pressure to the football club. Thomas Frank has sort of deflected a lot of it by just coming out and answering questions straight, not giving them really too many sound bites. And to your point, it's sort of allowed us to sort of just quietly go along. But I'd also argue we've played a lot of the relegation teams. They don't really come with big media scrutiny and stuff like that. The teams we've got coming up, we will be scrutinized a lot more now moving forward. But big up, Phil. Absolutely spot on there. Guys, I want to talk about the home form, and then I've got a missed call on my phone, so I need to see if that's my mother or not. And by the way, if my sister Neve is watching, happy birthday to you, by the way. Happy birthday. But Spurs have been inconsistent at home. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss in our league games at the stadium. And look, this goes way back to last season. I think last 17 at home, we haven't been great. Look, Villa are a good team. We can't really afford to drop more points here. What does Thomas Frank need to change, to make the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium more of a fortress again? Because you sort of said yesterday it's a bit of a two-pronged thing. It's on the fans and the sort of connect between the players. Guys, what's going wrong at home? Because you even look at the atmosphere. Because the performances at home are not great, it is sort of quietening down the atmosphere in these home games as well. It is starting to become a problem, and something we do need to rectify, because your home form is your bread and butter. It's the basis of, all of your success, really.
I mean, I would say the fact, personally, that it's a vicious circle that the fans are quick to get on the players' backs if the players aren't playing well. So therefore, the players don't make mistakes anymore, because then the fans will get on the back. Whereas, and I'm not blaming the fans before anybody starts having a go. So, it spirals down and down and down, where if you get that confidence of playing well, and then the fans are behind you all the time, and then that encourages you to play better. And that's the spiral or the circle that we need to get on. That we need one or the other to spark the other. And it's hard to say which one needs to come first, but it will come. I mean, we can't use the excuse of, well, it's a new ground or anything, because we've been in there long enough now to be able to get there. But I think under Frank, we'll get to the point where he's instilling the defense to be more solid, and we're seeing that now. You know, we're not conceding as many goals. And look, under Ange, the system was that we were going to be more gung-ho, and we could easily lose games, where under Frank, it's more, let's not lose, and then we can go on to win. And with that sort of philosophy comes a harder team to beat, which means when you're playing at home, you should be a harder team to beat, and it will come. And, you know, again, we keep saying that a win creates confidence, and the more times we win, the more confidence we'll get, the more the fans will get behind the team, and hopefully we'll get back to like it was under Poch, where we had the Van der Ven, Alderweireld, where we were absolutely almost impossible to beat at home. In sometimes, you know, we had the best defense, and with the two defenders we've got now, and the left back and the right back, whether it's Spence, whether it's Udogie, or whether it's Porro, we'll get there. And now we've got Paulinho. It will be a harder team to beat, and that will instill more confidence and go on to make it a fortress. Hopefully.
I think it's going to have to be a tactical. It's going to have to be a tactical adjustment, right? Look at what happened when Bournemouth came into our house, using using physicality and pace and getting our early goal within the first 5 minutes, and then taking the entire supporters out of the entire match for a good portion of that match, right? So the tables are going to have to be turned, right? Not allowing Aston Villa to establish the their early presence and keeping us on the back foot, right? Because that's a recipe for disaster, right? And so that means, every 50-50 challenge, every single long ball, jumping into tackles early, and also just establishing that physical presence within that first 5 minutes and kind of turning the tables. Because you would probably assume that Unai Emery has seen some tape on how to beat Spurs early at home, right? So, like the best way to take the crowd out of it is to try to muscle Spurs out of it. And so from that standpoint, that's going to have to be that is going to have to be established within the first 5-10 minutes. And, we saw that away at Bodo Glimt, where, what physicality will do to us within that first 10 minutes of the opening whistle. Right. So it's like, if you want your crowd to be in it, give them something to get riled up over. Right. So from that standpoint, it has to be a little bit of a tactical switch.
Well, just to sort of jump in on that, Steve, do you not think that in order to get the crowd off their bums and up and shouting, we need some more flair players? It's the flair 100%. Players that bring the crowd into the game. I mean, if we're playing that defensive system, you haven't got a lot to shout about. I mean, when we sort of played a little bit more defensive, and we had, say, a Gareth Bale, you put a ball over, he'd run, bang, everybody was up and shouting. Yeah. Whereas you kind of look at it now, and I think somebody in the comments just said, keeping the ball and dictating the pace, but that doesn't create necessarily exciting football, and that's what the crowd need to get up and shouting, and and get behind the team is that little bit of exciting football.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think when you look at it away from home, teams don't sit back against us. They're more likely come out against us, which gives us a bit of space to play in. At home, a lot of the teams that will come here will look to sit in and hit us on the counter. And the big problem is to Soren's point, we don't have the flair players, to sort of make it exciting at home. And I think that's one big part of the problem in terms of the fan base. In years gone by, we've always had flair players, whether it be Bale, Lennon, Modric, Robbie Keane, Ericsson, Dele Alli, players like that, Kane, Son. This team, it's lacking it. You look, Kudus looks like he's going to be one of them players. You're hoping Xavi Simons, can acclimatise to the Premier League quicker, and he can become one of them players. But I think that is the biggest thing, is we don't have a lot of flair players in this team. I think that's why many people were bored watching the football for the last couple of years under Ange Postecoglou and stuff like that. Just don't have the flair players whatsoever. And I think that's a big thing at home when the oppositions are sitting in and you're trying to break them down. That's where you rely on your flair players to come up with that bit of quality and stuff like that. And we just don't have that, which then means it's a very boring game to watch. And a lot of the fans are sort of just getting disgruntled and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you can't blame the fans. They're being charged one of the most highest price tickets in world football to watch their team. At the end of the day, You know, they've made the stadium into an entertainment venue. Okay, well then go and entertain us then. You know, if this is the narrative that they want to put out over the last few years, we're going to be an entertainment venue, then it's up to you to make sure the football team is just as entertaining as the acts that you bring to the stadium, and the likes of Beyonce, the Tyson Fury fights and everything else. You know, make sure the team is as entertaining to watch. I think you're absolutely spot on that one. I also don't think the fact that the club didn't want to engage with different fan groups in years gone by has helped. You know, the atmosphere in the stadium to be very reluctant to work with the likes of THFC flags and stuff like that. Guys who just want to just turn the place into a bit more of a fortress, allow more flags, allow more tifos, you know, get singing sections and stuff like that. And I think that's where they missed a massive trick with that wall. At the end of the day, that whole stadium was designed to generate a lot of noise. We've got acoustic panels up the top of the stadium that are designed to reverberate the noise back in, to keep the noise within the stadium. But then why are the club not working with fans to make that south stand a bit like what Dortmund is? Because at the end of it, that's why we built it, to try and replicate the Dortmund's famous yellow wall. But we are nowhere near that. And I'm hoping that the fan engagement with different groups now moving forward will help rectify that, you know, bring back the drum, bring back different things, you know. You look all across Europe, you know, their fan bases are crazy. Even when their teams are losing, they're up there with the T-shirts off, swinging around their head and stuff like that. You know, if you want to generate that at Tottenham, then it's about time the club start working with the different fan groups. Anyone else anything want to say on that?
Yeah, the comment right there from Timmy L right there, where he's talking about the poor culture at home. I don't necessarily buy that as well too, because a lot of these supporters were coming over from White Hart Lane. And those European nights and some of those big fixtures at White Hart Lane were anything but poor culture, right? So me personally, is this an issue of poor culture, or has this team actually kind of been run into the ground over the last 5-6 years, right? To the point where there was not really a lot to actually celebrate and get behind, right? I don't necessarily blame poor culture at all.
I think the biggest problem with trying to create that south stand into the Dortmund stand is it does come down to price. And I don't mean that this might create a lot of controversy, but you are pricing the fans out that would probably go and sing the hearts out. And look, a lot of the fans that go there are proper fans. I'm not saying that, but a lot of the fans that get into White Hart Lane, into the Tottenham Stadium these days, have recently been tourist fans. And as much as tourist fans, and I'm not talking about the purist fan that have gone because they are proper Tottenham fans. I'm talking about the ones that have maybe just gone to see Sonny or gone to see, you know, and a day out type fans. And until you get that type of fan back into the stadium that used to go, and, you know, it was maybe a £20 ticket or whatever, they are now at the local small pub league football teams singing the hearts out instead of at the Premier League. Tottenham Hotspur and many a team like that within the Premier League and around the world are not the sort of football teams that bring fans in that are there to sing anymore. They are there to pay money. And
was that by design, though, Soren? Was that by design by the club, though, Soren? Considering, you know, that contingent from White Hart Lane kind of got priced out because they actually thought that the tourist fan was actually more apt to play those ticket prices, right? You know, was that by design?
The thing is, though, when you create that south stand, and it's the perfect stand to have a standing fan that is there to sing, that is there to support the club, not for a day out. There is a big difference between going to a football match to support your football club and going to a football match for a day out. And it's like every single thing in this world, that everything becomes dearer, and it then suddenly gets a different type of person involved within that whatever it is. And if you want the fans there that are going to sing their hearts out, that are passionate about the club in a different way to those that are there for a day out. And, you know, I've got to emphasize the fact I'm not talking about fans that go to the football game now that can afford to go and are passionate about the team. I'm talking about the ones that have just gone for a day out because they're in London, they've come across, they are not proper Tottenham Hotspur fans. That's where I'm trying to get the difference at. And, you know, corporate, a lot of the corporate people that go, they sit up in the little boxes up there. They're not interested in coming out and singing and supporting the team. They're there for a day out to show off to the mates, some of, that they've got the money to be able to go and drink champagne and little sandwiches with no crust on and whatever. They're not the fans that you want. They're not the fans that you want in your stadium to sing and shout for your football club.
Yeah, posh twats.
What did Dave say about the Chelsea fans? They have their poodles. They walk around with their poodles or something like that.
Yeah.
No. It's. I totally 100% agree with that South stand, man. Like, even Thomas Frank comes out in the media. By the way, if it has to come out across yet, like, I'm a disciple to any manager that we have, dude. Like, the same thing with Dave. When they get out of the club, dude, like, I don't care about Postecoglou anymore. But it was kind of rewarding to see the Nottingham Forest managers kind of sitting there all like just total defeated, like seeing that big Greek guy, man. I'm gonna keep it. I won't call him what I think he is, but when it comes to that South stand, there needs to be a solid 1,500 seats that are just allocated for the average fan, right? For those fans, that's all I'm going to say when I say average, when I say for the humble Tottenham experience, because people forget what the neighborhood of Tottenham is, right? It's N17, it's the North London. You get off the tubes and you got to put your hood up and you got to go home and you got to be careful, or you can go down to the local turf field and cage yourself in there and play some good cage football, and then get some local vendor food with your local change, and you get by. It's humble living, dude. It's like that here in North America too. You get off the SkyTrain, you get off the public transit, you put your earbuds in and you make a humble living to go by. And I compare it to my local hockey team, dude. Like, I went and saw them to Northers, dude, but I could barely afford it, dude. I could barely afford it. I could sit up in the upstairs bleachers and make my way to the front when there's empty seats. But the local sports economy, what's going on in the world, is pretty intense with the world economy and everything, and inflation and stuff. But you still have to accommodate for the fan, because that's what makes the game. That's what pays the paychecks. That's what pays these. But we're talking finances. We could talk finances all day, but Basuma, 70,000. Like, that's 70,000 a week, and that's the comparison of like quality to the match ticket too. Like 100 quid or 100, whatever it is, 100 for a match ticket, man, plus the jerseys, so structure your finances a bit better, because I'm booking things to come over, and those elite seats for like the tourist fan, for those sandwiches and the 7 courses meals, and you get there an hour before the kickoff and they feed you, and then you can go walk off on your balcony. That's like 300, 400 like euro for the traveling fan. Which, if you're gonna exploit the traveling fan, exploit them. Like, make them like make them pay like 1,000, like bump up that price, so then the rest of the stadium and these economy seats can drop down back, so we can bring on those passionate fans that can show up to the match pre-match with their scarves and drink and stuff, go in the stadium. But when the game starts, they run back to the pubs and they go back to, like, we got to bring those people back into the South Stand, take advantage of the acoustics, and there's no reason you can't have your pig and pine eat in a scenario when you have a big temple like that. It's just structuring it differently, and I'm hoping that's why they took Levy out of it, because hopefully now they can adjust the sliders, and like, if Levy was just strictly about making money, now you can kind of like relax it a little bit. Like, I know there's $1 billion debt that needs to get paid back to the Bank of England, and there's all this interest that needs to be paid back in 20 years, and but you can still do it where you don't have to gouge the fan, right? Gouge the strategic people, not the people who are the blood and heart of your soul, like the soul of your club, dude. Like,
but you know one thing that would instantly change the atmosphere within that club? Bring a band in, get a trumpeter, and I don't just mean one, but
we had one for the North London Derby, and I was there for it. He was on top where the cockerel is, blowing the trumpet like there's no.
He's no good up there. He wants to be down at pitch level with a drummer and somebody else. You look back to, you've got Thomas Tuchel saying that the England fans. You go back to when the Chef Wednesday band used to go to the England matches, and they used to dictate. You look at any passionate team around the world, Europe, Galatasaray. You've got a couple of people stood at the front, no shirt on, and they're not watching the football. They're watching the crowd, and they are dictating what the crowd do. All you've got to do.
You're not allowed. You don't get away with that in the stadiums in England. The minute you stand up, you're told to sit down by a steward. It's honestly,
this is what I'm saying.
You're being told to sit down.
This is what I'm saying. Until you change that mentality, then you are not going to get the passionate fans and the singing and the noise. You put a drummer and a trumpeter underneath that south stand at the front, behind the goal, and so they can see them, and they are dictating the pace all the game. They don't stop. It's not like, oh, we'll have 2 minutes here, bang, 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 bang. Yeah, oh, we'll sit down and watch the game. No, you do it for 90 minutes.
I agree. Look, you even look at the League of Ireland, right? In years gone by, attendance was shite, but since the pandemic, attendances are up all across the board, sold out stadiums. And although the football is shite to watch, it's getting better, but still shit to watch. Some of the atmospheres they're generating is insane. They're allowed flares and everything in the stands.
Just a quick one to the Auto Spurs Kung Yu comment. Nobody said it was the travelling Spurs fans from outside. What
I'm
people
one of them,
said
by
was,
the way.
it
one of them
was
too.
people coming across that are not there to support the team. They're there for a day out. There is a big difference between travelling fans from around the world and that have come to watch the team and support the team to people coming for a day out to maybe support a player that just because they've come from their country. Big difference.
No, I do get what Soren's saying. Like, there are people that are coming over that aren't Tottenham fans. They're just maybe a fan of an individual player or stuff like that, you know, where they maybe don't know all the songs and stuff like that compared to, you know, like Anto is saying here, you know, he's a Spurs fan, sits in front of his TV singing his heart out. I mean, look, there's many of us worldwide that do that. You're absolutely spot on, Anto. But to Soren's point, he's more talking about the people, you know, the corporate people that are just bringing people to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for a day out because it's what's on at the time, or people that are a fan of an individual player. Like Son brought a load of fans that were there just to support him, weren't necessarily Tottenham fans. I do understand the point. But I think, you know, there's been many mishaps moving into this home stadium. I know, like, you know, at White Hart Lane, you used to have the four stands that used to sing into each other, you know, we're the South Stand, we're the Park Lane and everything else, you know, back and forth. But when they moved into the new stadium, they broke all them sections up, you know, which was absolutely madness. You know, for me, someone that's traveling over from Ireland, it is so easy to get my hands on a ticket for the South Stand. I'm not being funny. Although when I'm going over, I prefer to be in the South Stand. I shouldn't be able to get a ticket there. You know, that should just be, you know, hardcore Spurs fans in there singing their lungs out. That's what it's designed to be. That's the way the Dortmund stand is. The yellow wall. Anyone that goes to try and get a ticket for the yellow wall for a Dortmund game, you won't get in. You just will not get in. I think there's been many sort of things missed like that at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Just quickly, the biggest thing for me is I just think there's been just a massive disconnect from fans to the board, you know, to the manager, to the playing squad and stuff like that. You know, you got managers in years gone by that we've brought in that have been so divisive. People either love or hate. There's no in between. You've got an owner that didn't really have the ambition that matched the fan base. You got a playing squad that many fans knew wasn't good enough in the first place and have been let down by what they produced on the pitch. So at the football club, there's just been this massive disconnection in general in years gone by, especially since we really built that stadium. You know, we've sold some of our better players and not really replaced them to the best we could and stuff like that. So there's just been a massive disconnect. But I would say, with the way things are going now, off the back of a massive summer transfer window for this club, with Daniel Levy leaving, with Thomas Frank, a guy that was a popular choice within the Spurs fan base, with a starting 11 out there that look like they're giving it their all, I think now is the time for fans to sort of just let bygones be bygones and sort of get behind this and let's see, especially if you're at the ground, and just start singing and supporting. And
you give me dark memories there, David, of that bad squad, man. You give me dark memories of Jensen Fernandez's and the Harry Winkses and the skip midfield there starting. And oh man, but hey,
I mean, we talk about atmosphere and we say that we know we can do it. Go back to that Arsenal game. We destroyed them before they even got on the pitch. The atmosphere that day was as good as it's ever been anywhere under Tottenham Hotspur. So we know this stadium can do it. We know the fans can do it. So, you know, the question is not can we do it? It's why don't we do it?
To your point, it's the flair players on the football pitch. It all comes back down to that, you know, and fans are paying top dollar and they're sitting there bored. You know, it's very hard to generate an atmosphere. You know,
Well,
it's you got flair players that are exciting to watch. Fans are off their seat. They're excited. You know, they're encouraged because they're seeing a team going forward, trying to score goals, and all that. You know, sort of gets the fans on side. I think with what's gone on years gone by, I do honestly think the onus is on the club and the playing squad and stuff to rebuild that connection with the fan base. Start putting in your performances at home. I don't like the fact that Frank sort of came out and said it's a two-pronged thing with the fans have to play their part. I'm not being funny, but that stadium is sold out week in, week out. Fans are playing their part. They're turning up. At some point, it's over to you guys to give the fan base something to get back behind. At the end of the day, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've been here too many times. Season that starts off well, but failed to build on the back of that momentum. You know, so I do think it is over to people inside the club to make a real conservative effort to sort of bring the fans back in, because even with the disconnection, even with fans hating Levy, they were still making record merchandise sales. They were still selling out the tickets every single week. So I do think the onus is on the club this way. I don't like when people start going, oh, it's the fans, the fans. The fans are the ones that are pumping in this money. That's why you're being paid top dollar. But we're not getting top dollar performances back. So I think, you know, there needs to be reflection inside the club and realize that. Anyone else, anything else they want to say on that before we move on? Yeah,
totally. Like, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the last thing I was going to say there is that I think it's been a like you said, disconnect, but it has to go back to this new stadium thing. Like, I know it's not a new stadium, we're almost a decade in here, but I've always felt we had this mentality where it's like we've treated like you got a new phone, you got the wrapper on it, you know, you don't want to dirty it, you don't want to like, you know, put the white gloves on and like totally. It's like, no, get in there and like make it your home fortress. Get in there, be gritty. Like almost go back to Bentico and he's like kicking the crap out of the seat, dude. Go make those hard challenges that are like VAR. I'm not trying to say go and get a red card, but you see how Liverpool play in Anfield when Liverpool was rocking from 2017 to about 2021 there, just after COVID and that really cut back. They made that stadium like you went out there bloody and bruised and you'd be like, what the hell? Because the ref and VAR and the whole system was like so scared of like the Anfield crowd and the media and what would have happened, the reaction. You know, we got moments of it, like especially against Liverpool, right? Some of the sketchy stuff that happened to Liverpool at our stadium. Like, but when that pressure is cooking at that Tottenham Hotspur stadium, there's a couple of glimpses, like you called out the Arsenal game. Look at the Matip own goal, you know, almost beating Chelsea. Like there's certain moments like of magic that we can tap into, right? So it's just about it. It's got to be a mentality thing. Right? It's just got to be about switching that and like, hey, you know, don't call it the fan, but you have to give the fan something to cheer about. So it's finding that balance, right? And hopefully Frank. Today's a really, really decisive game. This is a really big decisive game, and I hate the international break. Hate's a strong word, but like cutting a season like that up and like getting these. Like if we took away the international break and we had those 2 draws and then we backed it up with a big win against Villa, that would have been solidifying into the season. So now we have to go into this, get up, get our tails up, and go again. But this is a perfect game to be at home for. So.
I think the biggest thing and one of the biggest disconnects was the fact that there was no transparency between the ownership and the supporters groups, right? You never really saw Daniel Levy talk in the media. You never really heard from any of those guys. And so at the end of the day, we had no idea exactly what the plan was. Dave, you and I had multiple conversations about the identity of this team and the direction in which they were headed. And it almost feels like at certain points we were throwing darts at dartboards. But at the end of the day, though, now that Daniel Levy's gone, it feels like there's a little bit better transparency between that front office and supporters groups. Now, I don't necessarily know if it's full transparency, but at least they're talking. You hear from Vinny, you hear from what the ownership group is actually trying to accomplish now that Levy's gone. I actually hope that actually improves to the point where some of these fan relations with the supporters group and the ownership group actually improves to the point where we're actually going to get to where we want to be.
Absolutely spot on. Look, I think the conversation today has been very, very good. So appreciate that, boys. I think it all comes back to Derek Hutchinson. The fans do not get excited when they're served up crap every week. That is the problem. I think you're absolutely spot on there. Del boy, good to see you in the building. Guys, look, in terms of today's game, we know it's going to be sort of a physical game. It's a difficult game. But for me, I do sort of look at this one as maybe of a 6-pointer, I would say. I think this is the sort of game where with tougher fixtures coming up and bigger fixtures coming up, I think you've got to sort of try and set the, what's the right word, the standard of how you mean to go on. And I think today it has to be done by beating Aston Villa, putting the 3 points on the board, start separating yourselves from the guys that are in the middle of the pack. And I think today is a prime opportunity to be able to go and do that by beating someone like Aston Villa. If Aston Villa beat us today, all of a sudden they're only 1 point behind us, and then we're in this big melee in the middle of the pack. We really need to start creating some distance. And that's why, for me, I think today is a massive 6 pointer. I think we have to go out there and win this game by hook or crook. I don't really care how, to be honest with you. We just need to put the 3 points on the board, because I really do think it'll dictate how we handle this congested fixture list coming up. Because I go back to, I remember Postecoglou's first season. We had a couple of games, you know, before we went into Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, and there's a couple of other teams in there as well. And we didn't pick up the points we should have heading into them games. We lost them. And all of a sudden, then we went into them big games sapped of confidence. You know, when you're sapped of confidence, you feel like your energy levels are lower and stuff like that. And honestly, it was just one big dark period. We couldn't wait to come out the other end of it. We couldn't wait for the season to end because we didn't know when the next sort of result was going to come around. And I feel like we've got a similar sort of fixture schedule coming up. And that's why I'd argue I think today is massively important that we set the tone and start it off in the right way and put the 3 points on the board. But let's maybe get into talking about some sort of individuals heading into today's game. I mean, guys, there's massive pressure, in my opinion, on Romero. Linus will be out in 10 minutes. I'll bring them up. But Spurs have gone all out to make sure that Romero is available for today after paying for, a private jet for him to get back from Argentina international duty. Now, the reason why this is significant is because if you go back to last year, was it last year? I think it was, or the year before. I think it was last year. Romero sort of complained, you know, that because he was waiting for the flight that Argentina put on to send players back to England, he didn't get back in time for the North London Derby and he was too tired to play and stuff like that. So that's why Spurs have maybe gone the extra mile this time, and they paid for the private jet to get him home to make sure he's available for today's game. And at the end of the day, I'm not being funny. People can say, oh, prima donnas and stuff like that. And to a degree, sort of, I don't disagree with that. However, if you're Romero and you're playing with a team like Argentina and you're seeing all these other top players getting private jets back to their clubs to make sure they're back in time for the game on the weekend, but because they're that important to the club and you're having to sit around and wait, it doesn't send out a good message to someone like Romero. And if that's the way our players are treated, you know, then it's no wonder why they want to leave and go elsewhere when they're seeing players getting top care left, right, and center. So for me, I think it's the right decision to start putting on private planes to get these players back, because at the end of the day, the only reason why we didn't was to save some money. That's all it was. We didn't care about the 3 points on the weekend and getting these players back in prime condition. We done it to penny pinch, which is absolutely mind-boggling. So how much pressure is actually on Romero then today to go out there and perform off the back of what Spurs have done? Because everyone's made a big deal of.
Well, like you knew me last year. Like the where I was playing, the level I was at and stuff, and like being in that locker room and the players, man. Like some of those players, dude, like. That's the level they operate at, like the diva. It's like the inner diva of like, yeah, okay, well, look at me, the national team. Like, well, my club's bringing me this. This club's playing me to fly out here. Like, they thrive off of that pressure, and it's like almost adding that last little bit of pressure cooker to get them to that world class level, to win those World Cups, to operate that 97th percentile, right, to break through. You know, so. Romero knows himself best. He would not play himself through an injury to get himself for his thigh. He's a really weird thigh with the way his abductor connects with his femur or something. I don't know. It's like, and so like he puts pressure on that injury, but he can control it now. Get a couple days back earlier, get himself a hot soak, get himself a training session in there. For me, it's more of the Paulinho, man. For me, it's more Paulinho and like how he handles Tielemans, dude. If we can get Paulinho to crunch into Tielemans, just absolutely dominate that 30 feet in front of him, like and just in front of the 6. From him, like a slider from him to half, if he can just dominate that space and really just break up that play, then yeah, we can really dominate this team and this Aston Villa team. And then that Matty catch will happen. That Matty catch will happen where they'll try and overplay, and then somebody can step out and really give them a good crunch, and then we can start, imposing ourselves. But no, those kind of players, that's the level they operate. That's their mentality, right? Like it's they expect because the level they perform at is just at that peak level, right? And then they need to be like that way. They, like you said, Dave, like to sit there to wait for an economy class flight from Daniel Levy when like you got Rodrigo de Paul getting fly back from Atletico Madrid. No wonder his head was turned for a second, bro. He's like, yo, come to Atletico, bro. Like look how they treat us, man, right? And it's like, well, this is the benchmark, Daniel, right? And so maybe seeing that also is a big reason why Daniel Levy's not there anymore either. You know, the fact that like he was penny pinching to the point where like he was cutting Luka Modric's shirt deal out of like, you take a couple extra shirts for your family, but you're gonna get it deducted from your paycheck, right? Like, like that is a level of madness where it's like you don't need to micromanage that much, right? So it seems like we're at a transitional point in the club where hopefully rubs out in the first team too, right? That's what you want, right? So.
Just quickly, Tempest at his first home game since '85. My man, I mean, look, really hope you enjoy yourself at the stadium today. I hope you have the time of your life. Look, I love going there around match day. You know, it doesn't matter what end of the high street you're coming up. You're well aware it's a match day. There's plenty of Spurs fans around. Try and get into the concourse maybe an hour before kickoff. That's when the atmosphere starts to generate in the concourse. Fans singing and stuff like that. I hope you have a great day. And look, hopefully you get the result to match with it. You are in the North Stand, which means you are going to be beside the away traveling fans. And believe me, I've been there. It is disgusting when you are losing. I was there beside the Brighton fans when we got pumped after the Europa League semi-final last year. Horrible. I was there for a North London derby beside Arsenal fans when they were jumping for joy in that section. It is horrible. It is only fun in the North Stand when you're winning and you can turn to them and give them the banter. When you're on the receiving end of it and things ain't going well, it's very hard to tolerate, Tempest. So hopefully you're on the right side of the scoreline today. Big up Ed, big up Ryan, and big up DJ Samuel and Rooty too as well. Good to see you and Tony Southfield as well. Guys, anyone else want to come in on the back of the Romero thing? And then maybe we're going to talk about a little bit about Xavi Simons.
I'd like to come in with a quick one, and I'm going to be pretty controversial here. I totally disagree with people saying the club should pay for a private jet for Kuti.
Wow.
Because I don't know what you lot do for a job, but you go and ask your boss to pay for you to get somewhere to go and work for somebody else and come back. It should be the national team paying for that private jet, not Tottenham, the national team, because Dave, he's going to play for them. Now, you go into any other profession and say to them, right, I'm just going to go work for Joe Bloggs down the road, but can you pay for me to get there and back, please? You will get told where to get off. Now, I understand the philosophy.
But if you were in Romero's shoes, would you not leave and go into a company that does provide that, though?
No company in the world is going to pay you to go and work for somebody else.
But all the other top clubs, like Man United,
I'm not disagreeing with the fact that they do that. But what I'm saying is, why should all those other clubs have to do it? If you're going to work for somebody else, which you are doing for a national team, then that national team should be paying for your travel.
They do, Soren. I just thought he wants to get back a couple days earlier, right? Like if you wait for the Argentina bus, like our plane is, for instance, let's say Argentina plane leaves on Thursday, gets back like Friday, can't train Saturday for the game on Sunday, right? Whereas like he pays for that personal flight from Tottenham to get back on like a Wednesday kind of thing, right? Like just even like a day earlier.
If you're going to work for somebody else and you say to them, right, I've got to be back on a certain date, then they should be paying for you to get there and back.
In theory, I do get what you're saying.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm not saying, the precipice is obviously started by the first club that said, no, we'll pay for you to get back. Fair enough. And you say, well, that's loyalty to your player. And I understand that. But then where's the loyalty from the national team to that player? Because they're pulling him away from the club that pays his wages. So they should be the ones that are paying for him to get however he has to get to that game and back again. It should be the national team paying for that travel, not Tottenham Hotspur. Now, I'm not saying the fact that now that precipice has been started by the clubs that Tottenham shouldn't do it. But if you actually roll the ball back, it should be the national teams that are pulling those players away from the company that pay their wages. And they should be the one that is doing everything to supply that player with what he needs to get there and back.
Well, Rooty Toot just says he's done a bit more digging on it. He says, just checked, Argentina paid half the cost of the jet, which I find interesting on that one, actually, because usually what international teams do is they'll send planes to certain locations, and they'll load it up, with players heading back in that direction. So it's interesting that Spurs managed to get Argentina to pay half of it, which I find very, very interesting. And then James Coffey comes in. Big up, James. He says, Soren, national teams do not pay the players a wage, so your argument makes no sense. I do understand in theory. I do understand in theory what Soren's saying. I think what Soren is trying to say is because they're taking them away from the club that is paying their wages, in theory, they should be paying for these guys to come back on private jets and get them back in time for the games on the weekend. However, it's not happening. But I think what Soren is saying is,
I think you will find that national teams do play an appearance fee these days. I think the days of when players turn up for free have long gone. But
the national teams pay a big stipend for their players to come in.
That's the whole point, James, that the national teams do not pay the players their wages. That's what I'm saying. Exactly agreeing with you. And that's why should Tottenham pay for a jet for them to go and work for somebody else? This is what I'm trying to say. That the logical side is that the team, the international team that you're going to play for should be paying for you to get there and back.
No, look, I think it's a fair point. But guys, let's move on to Xavi Simons. Look, Villa's midfield is no joke. It's physical. It's aggressive. They do their work at high intensity. It's always been a big part of Unai Emery's team is making that midfield very sort of combative and stuff like that. Given Villa's physicality in the midfield, do we think that Frank should bring in someone like a Sarr or Bergvall in that number 10 to match that? Or is this the perfect chance to test Simons centrally again? Because when I done my predicted lineup, when I really sat there and thought about it, I like Xavi Simons, but he is still getting up to speed of the physicality and the pace of the Premier League. It's the hardest league in the world. And I do look at him, and I do think he's a bit lightweight. In games previous, he's been out-muscled in duels and stuff like that. And I just wonder, would today be the wrong game to play him in the 10? Now, I know there's a huge clamour from the fan base to play him in the 10. But it's not like this kid can't play off the left. He has played there, for club and country before. And I just wonder, given today's opponents, would we see more of him off the left-hand side today than through the middle as a number 10? Because when he gets the ball on the left-hand side, he's only going to have one player. When he gets the ball in the midfield today, he's going to have 2 or 3 snapping at him. Big guys. You're talking about John McGinn, wily old dog. You're talking about Onana. He's back. Big physical presence. Tielemans, another one that can lay down a mark and stuff like that. So where do we see Xavi Simons playing today? We've got 3 minutes till the lineup comes out, so let us know.
Number 10.
Number 10, you think we should just persist with it? And because at the end of the day, I think to your point, right, he's going to have to learn to adapt, right, to the physicality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact of we've seen him play on the left, and I mean, I was sort of saying that I think that's where we'll see him a lot this season. But I think he has looked a little bit lost on the left, and when he's sort of played as that number 10, he has looked better. And yeah, maybe it's time just to say to him, right, go make that number 10 spot yours, and we will play whoever we can on the left. And yeah, that's the way it goes.
The interesting thing, though, is that, it's the same thing, Dave. I was actually, I spent a couple hours just thinking about this, exactly how you deploy a guy like Xavi Simons. And my first rational thought was like, well, until you actually know if he can actually handle the rigors of that position in the Premier League, you got to find out. And so you probably should just start him there and see exactly if he can handle it. Then the other thought came to my mind. Well, you can also deploy him, based on the opponent. You can deploy him because of the deficiencies on the left. You can pick and choose exactly how you're going to be able to deploy him. But then I also thought about the fact that Matty Cash plays out on the right for Aston Villa, which is also kind of a tall order as well too. So from that standpoint, I kind of lean back to deploying him as the 10. Just because I don't think it's as far as physicality goes, I don't think it's going to matter which spot you play him at. I think he's going to have to deal with it one way or another, right? So you might as well play him at the 10 and let him see if his flair is something that can overcome some of the physicality of what Villa is going to try to do.
Donovan, you?
I think almost like Soren did last point. Like I think a total opposite of this. Like I think we're looking at this from Xavi Simons' point of view, even though it is the point of the question. That is the point of the question. But I'm looking at it from Thomas Frank's point of view, where it's like Bergvall, Sarr, Paulinho are way too good to not play together. Like I didn't realize how good Sarr was going forward. Like he's like a combination of Vieira and Yaya Toure, dude. Like, he's just amazing. And he's getting bigger every season, like physically stature. Like, we're going to see the best version of him in the next couple of years here. And like, he's got a cannon. The guy's got an absolute cannon. You get him within 30 yards, he can pick it out, right? And so, you get him going forward and being able to intercept and start reading the game. You just have Polina there sitting deep, really crunching in tackles. And you got Lucas Bergvall, the star boy, really doing what he needs to do. And that's not a testament against Bergvall either. The guy can get stuck in as well, dude. The guy can throw in a hard tackle, right? He's fearless. So that's a really good midfield. So breaking that up against another really robust midfield, I forgot. And I totally forgot Villa had Onana too. He is a world-class player. Like, if it wasn't for Polina, I'd go for Onana as well when he was at Everton. He's a great player. So it'll be a great battle, chess game in the middle. But until we go and splash the cash, and at least I'm saying like 60 million at least to replace Youngman's Son. Like, you have to understand, we haven't replaced Kane, and now we have to replace Son. Like, that's the best strike partnership of all time in the Premier League statistically, dude. Like, so we're going to have to spend some real decent money on that left-hand side to balance out Kudos, because we splashed cash on Kudos and you saw what happened, right? So I don't know, cycle Johnson out, get a decent player so we can play Buddy in the 10.
Fair. Well, look, guys, the lineup is out. Let's try and make sense of this. Of course, Vicario retains his place in goal. Across the back line, Pedro Porro at right back. Spence comes in for Destiny Udogie at left back, with Van de Ven and Romero forming a centre-back partnership. So one change across the back line. You go into midfield, Paulinho retains his place alongside Bentancur, and it does look like Xavi will be in that number 10, with Kudos off the right, Udebur off the left, and Matisse Tell through the middle. So that is your starting lineup. We'll run through that one more time. Vicario in goals, Pedro Porro right back, Romero and Van de Ven at centre back. We've got Jed Spence coming in for Destiny Udogie at left back. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Then you go into midfield and you've got Bentancur and Paulinho as the two holding midfielders. I know very controversial with many Spurs fans. Let me know how you feel about that one. Xavi then is in the 10, Kudos off the right, Udebur off the left, and Matisse Tell has been handed another run through the middle off the back of his goal against Leeds. We'll obviously have a quick conversation about that. On the bench then, you've got Kinski, you've got Kevin Danzo, Richarlison, Archie Gray, Bergvall, Johnson, Sarr, Kolo Muani, and young Byfield as well fills out the bench. Kolo Muani, I think many fans are hoping we will hopefully see a debut there today. Guys, we'll start with you, Stevie. We'll get your thoughts on the starting lineup. Matisse Tell obviously being handed another opportunity to, maybe stake his place in the team, off the back of his goal against Leeds. Do you think he deserves it?
Oh, absolutely, right. And when you see the progression from 5 weeks ago until now, and you start seeing kind of the improvement. It's kind of as far as I was concerned, I actually projected this one too, because I actually think he deserved the opportunity to go back out there again. And then also when you think about the fact that you wonder whether Randall Kolo Muani's even got 30 minutes in his legs, considering he hasn't really had a preseason and he's only had a couple weeks to train, it almost makes sense considering that Richarlison probably has proven that he's just not good enough to handle these type of situations. That seems like it's going to be more of a Champions League thing against Monaco than it would be for a physical team like Aston Villa. And so I think, as far as I was concerned, it made sense a little bit for Tell to get some run out as well too. Same with Wilson Odobert. But that being said, it's like yesterday I also predicted that a Polina, Bentancur, Xavi midfield three has to kind of be out there. For the sake of continuity and chemistry. Those are your three best midfielders, and you're going up against a team that you're going to have to match skill for skill. And me personally, it's not that I don't think Sarr's been frozen out. I actually think it's probably a little bit more beneficial to have Sarr come in the 60 to 65th minute, especially when those Aston Villa legs are getting a little tired, because he does have the skill to be able to score at any point. And so from that standpoint, I'm actually perfectly okay with this. Maybe not so much with Jed Spence. Me personally, I would have preferred a Destiny Udogie, but yeah. I mean, I guess that's splitting hairs at this point.
Not gonna lie, I worry about Simmons in the number 10. I hope I'm proven wrong today, because I'm of the opinion you got to win the midfield battle in terms of then to be able to go and sort of play and stuff like that. And I just worry, is Simmons a bit lightweight in that? Could that come back and maybe cost us? Is that something Frank might have to rectify quickly after halftime? Let's wait and see. But look, no doubt the kid, he does need a run of games, and hopefully he can produce from that today. Hopefully, Villa do sit back and we can win that midfield battle with Bentancur and Paulinho. And I think that's absolutely key behind that, because I know a lot of people don't like Bentancur in terms of they don't think he's progressive enough or stuff like that. But I do think, a lot of the attacking problems are being maybe put onto someone like Bentancur. I think when you look at what Bentancur does is he gets the ball and he keeps it moving. That's what you want from the guy at the base of your midfield. If you're looking at him to be your creator, then stop defending the likes of Johnson, stop defending the likes of Tell, start calling them out for their performances and stuff like that. Donovan, let's get your thoughts on the lineup, my man. Jet Spence in for Destiny Udogie. I mean, what's your thoughts on that one? I've always made the argument. I think Udobur performs a lot better when Udogie's there, because Udogie is more willing to get forward on the overlap, which pulls players away, which gives Udobur time to sort of run at players. Whereas with Jet Spence, I don't see him getting on the overlap anywhere near as much. And the fact that he's right-footed means he's always looking to pass inside rather than down the line.
It'd be almost interesting to push Jet Spence up and put just as a left winger and then put Doty in the back. It'd be a nice thought experiment. But no, for this game, I don't know. Javi's a 10. He's no lightweight. Like, he is lightweight, but he did come out saying like he's used to people kicking the crap out of him, like absolutely kicking the shit out of him in the middle of the field, right? Like you're talking about a young starlet emerging from that part of the world, like the confidence and the swagger. You saw what happened when Lucas Bergvall went back, right? They like give him stick, man. Like, let him like try and knock him down a peg. Like, he's had people his whole life trying to break him in the midfield, so he's not a stranger to that. I'm hoping that 4-2-3-1 looks like it'll be attacking going forward. It seems to me like, like that image of like Bambi, the image of Bambi kind of like standing up on his like foot, like for the first time and like kind of like testing it out. That's what I kind of feel like this relationship is going forward on the wings. We have a solid one on the right with Kudos, but on the left we have like a very spindly Odobert, right? So can he really stand up to the constant challenges and tackles? Hopefully, get him 1v1, get him running at cash. Whoever's playing left back or right back. But yeah, I think you're right about the lightweightness going to be costing us long term in this game. Like, I would be predicting something crazy, something like a Manchester United thrubbing like a 5-1 or a 6-1 or something at home. If we had a confident balance between the left and right and a striker who could put the ball in the back of the net. But right now, like, I would take a comfortable 2-0, like a 2-0. Keep that clean sheet. Get a scrappy goal from our captain, and then like a decent, technical goal that's like highlight worthy. And then that kind of builds us going forward. Keeping that clean sheet starts this fortress talk at home and really just cements Vicario, because when you get like a consistent Vicario that's calm, he's a decent goalie. But when you get him like scrambling around and flopping around, and it's like, so 2-0. That's what I'm calling.
Yeah. The problem is with Vicario, we don't really have the ability to be able to test Kinski, because reports come out, that his progression is declining behind the scenes. He's not kicking on the way we originally thought, which I think is a huge concern. I think, is this a position that I think obviously we're going to have to readdress next summer, that goalkeeper. But to be honest with you, the fact that like Vicario still has a lot of the season ahead, he can still put in good performances, and rectify some of the errors that he's making. I think today is a huge game for him. At the end of the day, we can't have him miskicking the ball. We can't have him, pushing balls back into the danger area. He's got to show a bit more competency back there. But the fact that he's in the leadership group, the fact that Thomas Frank keeps throwing his fate in him, hopefully Vicario can sort of repay the fate. No Destiny Udogie in the squad there, Soren, is a point that people are making. Now, there's no real update on it. I'm sure maybe Frank would be asked about if he gets one of them City Sky interviews just before kickoff, about Destiny Udogie. Do you think he's rested? Is he maybe carrying a knock? What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've not heard anything about him, so I'm just assuming that he's maybe been rested for the Champions League.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the Bentancur thing, I think he's the sort of sensible one to put in there to keep it a little bit more solid, which allows Xavi to probably be that bit more, sort of enterprising and going forward and trying all his little tricks and things like that. And if you put somebody, say, like Bergvall in there and Xavi, then you haven't got that expertise in there. You know, you haven't got that solidarity, and it makes sense to me to put Bentancur in there for a game like this, because you know you've got two players in there with Paulinho and Bentancur that can be defensive, and it still allows Bentancur to probably get forward a little bit. But like I say, it just allows Xavi to be more creative. You know, to almost say to him, right, you get up front and you create, make things happen without having to worry too much about being as defensive. So it makes sense. And yeah, Doggy's probably just been rested. But the thing with Kinski as well is, like we said a little bit earlier about the rotation and things like that, maybe it's just a thing with Kinski that he's not playing, he's not getting game time. So therefore, as much as you can develop so much in training, you don't develop the same way as you do when you're playing actual games. So, you know, it's easy enough to say he's not developing the way we expected him to, but then we're not playing him neither. So how does he develop?
Well, you know, I think that's one of them, right? You can't just give him games for the sake of giving him games. At some point, you know, you got to earn it in training. You know, you got to show that in training. And I think that's where it's one of them. It's sort of like how much of it he needs to go out on loan in order to develop and play games, look, to your point, but how much of it also down to him. And I've always said this, you earn your minutes by what you do on the training ground. So I think it's one of them. One hand washes the other. But look, let's wait and see what happens there. I think you made an excellent point in terms of having that stability there at Bentancur and Paulinho. It sort of allows Simmons to maybe, you know, free him up a little bit more. Because I think if you were to throw Bergval or Sarr in there, they do like to vacate that position a little bit more. Whereas I think with Paulinho and Bentancur there, I think you're right. It sort of just gives us the opportunity to free Simmons up maybe a little bit more and not be as exposed on the counter if he does try things and lose the ball, because we've left gaping holes there because one of them have gone, you know, running forward and stuff like that. Absolutely spot on. Guys, make sure you please get across and subscribe to Stevie as well. I did put his channel link here in the chat for you guys to get across, show him some love. But look, we'll call it a day there. You know, I'm gonna go and give my sister a quick ring ahead of her birthday. Today is her birthday, so I'm gonna make sure she's having a good day, and then I will be straight back for the watch along, starting in about half an hour's time. I want to say a massive thank you to Donovan and Steve for getting up really, really early and being here today. Really appreciate it. No Drew today. Drew's also always a miss. You know, he's just got a lot of things going on and stuff like that. But if you do see him around the place, make sure you check in on him. Make sure you show him plenty of love. And I want to say a massive thank you as well to Soren. You know, work today. Not easy to come home. Well, sorry, not work. Work last night and stuff like that. Not easy to come home with very little sleep and come on and do this sort of stuff. I've tried it before. It doesn't work for me. So massive credit to Soren. You know, he's a bit worried that he's going to end up talking shite today. He was that tired. I think, you know, you should be tired more often. I think it's one of your best shows today, Soren, in that regard. I think you've been absolutely brilliant. So really appreciate that. I want to say a massive thank you as well to the people who have gone the extra mile. You know, the lifeblood of the channel. The likes of Faz Radfar, Al Dante, Shem Tem, Phil Kais as well. Really appreciate all you guys going the extra mile. And also you guys at home, also the lifeblood of the channel. If you guys weren't tuning in, listening, putting your comments in, engaging with us, you know, holding us to account when you think we're speaking shite and all that stuff as well, and also smashing the like and the subscribe button and all that stuff, we wouldn't be here today. So a massive thank you to every single one of you. It's been a great show today. Let's keep it going on the watch long. Go and get your lunch. See you back here in half an hour's time. As always, come on, you Spurs. In the Frank engine we trust.
And on score prediction.